Hi everyone, in this example I want to talk about making a client-side search feature. Some APIs don't have a search endpoint and Pokemon is an example of that. If we were to look at the Pokemon documentation, you wouldn't find here any search endpoint. And it's different in that sense from maybe some other APIs where you do have a search feature. We've seen one, for example, with IMDb Movies, where I could search for movies, and the endpoint of the API supports that possibility because it has a find functionality built in that allows me to pass along the title of some movie and search on the server. But Pokemon doesn't have a find endpoint. And so how is it possible then to still have a search feature? Well, here I have Pokemon search and a search box, and it works fine. I can search for Bulbasaur and there's Bulbasaur, right? And interesting, I have some data as well about Bulbasaur that we'll see. So let's take a look at how this works. In the beginning phase of this page, I'm just fetching literally all of the Pokemon names. And so that's maybe seems like a lot. It's more than 1,000 names, right? But it's not really a lot. It turns out that this list, even though it's a long list, is still just a kind of plain text. And so if I was to put that list in here, the total size of this is under 100 kilobytes. That's smaller still than your average JPEG or maybe even PNG file, right? So it's a big list, but it's still a manageable size. So it's reasonable to go and fetch all the names up front so that I can then make them searchable within the browser. So interestingly, the search box, this search box, is not initially visible. It's only being made visible after that data has been made present. You'll see here I'm changing the style of the search form to be display block, whereas initially it is display none, as we see here in the CSS file. That all happens so fast that you don't notice. For example, if I refresh, there's the search box, and it goes to show that actually this data that we're loading here loads quickly enough that it makes it manageable. So we have all of the Pokemon names in our response. We've turned on the search box, and so now we can listen for search events in this box. So when the user puts in here bulb, and in this case I'm doing it capitalized note, I'm able to get these kind of results. Let's try something else like fire. Is there such a thing? Maybe fur or some other name? I figured there might be something with fire, but let's try dragon. Okay, so here we have a couple of dragon results. And this should work also if I use capital letters. This time I used drag instead of dragon, so I get a greater range of matches. Okay, so how is this working? How am I getting these matches without there being an actual fetch to some find endpoint? Pokemon doesn't have a find endpoint after all. So let's take a look. We've pulled the search term from the box, be it drag or be it something else. And now we're going to make a list of matches. So what are the criteria for a match? We have a list of Pokemon and we're going to filter them. So the results we got from here, we are now going to filter. Results.filter. This is a nice array function that you can read more about here. Very useful feature of JavaScript, the filter function of arrays. Well, let's filter out the ones that don't match and we'll keep the ones that do. And so for every Pokemon in our list of names, let's make a comparison. Does it match what the user searched? And to make it work, I'm making everything here lowercase. And the effect of that is that the search is case insensitive. So it won't matter if it's capitals or lowercase or some combination of capitals and lowercase. DR capitals, AG lowercase should still function, and indeed it does. So if I make everything lowercase, it's possible then to compare the lowercase version of each, and the actual comparison happens down here. So I have this string, the name of the Pokemon in lowercase, and I'm asking a question. Does that string include this string, being the search term in lowercase? So whatever we put in here, make it lowercase, compare it now to the Pokemon's name in lowercase. And let's see if the Pokemon name includes the search term. What happens next? We return here either true or false. And this is like a test, right? This is a Boolean expression. It's either yes or no. It's either true or false. And if it's true, we'll return true to the filter, and the filter will put the result in our matches array. The result being, from all the original results, we have now only a subset that matches this condition. Okay, that condition could be anything you invent, but this condition is particularly useful as a filter because it makes it possible here to perform a kind of search on some data that we have just finished fetching. So what do we do with these matches now? Well, we want to put them on the screen here as usual. But before we do that, I've actually said for each of the matches, let's go and fetch more data. So here I've said, find the Pokemon with this particular name, the name for this particular match, right? After all, we're doing this for each of the matches. So for each of the matches, let's look up the details. And here we're doing that, fetch endpoint, and then display response. So before we're ready to display this, we're going to need details, and this, for example, 18, 40, 22 is a reference to some of the stats on the Pokemon. In this case, I think it's the height down here. I can make that clearer by spelling it out like so. And let's do again dragon. There we go. So I've clarified in my template that this height is a meaning for this number. Well, because we've done this fetch here, we have extra data for all of these search results, for all of these matches that passed our filter test. And so this is now a dynamic number of fetches, right? However many matches there are, that's how many fetches we're going to make. Multiple fetches on one page, depending on the context, depending on the logic. Okay, so we can make fetches happen within loops and then display the results. So here in that display area, we have again a template, and let's just for good measure modify that template so we can understand, hey, there's lots of data available here. And to be sure what variables are available to us, note I'm logging here to the console each of those results. So it might be possible then to test what data do I actually have available to me. And among the data, we saw, of course, that there is, well, the height and the name and so on, but I also have other stats like the weight here. So if I wanted to include the weight, I only know that because I've studied the data structure, right, as I've logged it. So understanding that, hey, yeah, weight is one of the available variables, I can go and target that here, and off we go. So let's refresh that one more time, and this time we have additional details about our dragons. So welcome to borrow this idea, make multiple fetches per page that depend on other contextual information, like what did you search for? I hope that's useful to you.